Hey everybody, it's your good friend Spider back again with another episode of Uncanny Media, the show. I'm tired, I'll tell you. It's been a long day today, and we're going to try to get through this as best we can. Sometimes these late nights, they don't treat me very well, but they treat me better than mornings, and I was up early this morning, for me. It might not be early for some people, but it was early for me. And I'm going to explain why in just a little bit here. Thankfully, it was a warm day. It was nice and warm today. Which is crazy because this season has just been ridiculous. From the beginning of spring up till now, which hasn't been very long. It's just been cold, warm, cold, warm, cold, cold, warm, cold, 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 warm, 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 cold, warm again. It's just been just rubber band, back and forth, bungee cord kind of stuff. Yesterday and the preceding days, we were bombarded with freeze watches and freeze warnings from the local weather conglomerate. It said to watch out, there's going to be freezing temperatures, potentially, and you might lose some plants if they're outside, or whatever. We didn't get quite that cold, but it did get cold. It got back down into the 40s. This is Fahrenheit, of course. If you're outside of the United States, we're using Fahrenheit here in the U.S., so it's not Celsius. And it got down into the 40s. It got cold enough that my furnace had to kick on again. And I thought it was done for the season because it had been warm. We'd been having 70-degree days plus. And then it got freezing cold. And then today it went right back up into the 70s again. And it's 70s right now. It's just insane as far as the temperature goes. And I'm sure somebody out there is probably saying, well, that's the climate change. And they wouldn't be entirely wrong. It depends on what their end goal about their statement was. Because I've talked about this before, I think. Climate change is a thing that does just happen on the planet. And while certain of our activities, I'm sure, have something to do with some aspect of it, I don't think it's the primary mover and shaker of modern climate change. I think it's just a cycle that the planet is going through right now, and we're just kind of nudging it in various ways. And it looks to some people that we have more impact than we do. But I don't think there's reason to panic. I do think we need to take care of our environment to some extent. I do think we need to make sure we don't just shove pollutants up into the atmosphere and whatnot and throw plastics into the ocean. I think it's just common sense that we don't do that kind of stuff. But I also don't think that what we're doing is having such a massive impact on the planet as a whole that it's disrupting the climate to some degree that it's going to bring on an apocalypse any day now. I don't think that's likely. You're free to disagree with me if you want. There's studies on both sides of that topic, but I've made up my opinion on the matter, and if I'm wrong, I guess I'll find out in a few years when the entire system collapses and we all fall into an ice age. I don't know. Or I'll be vindicated because none of that will happen. We'll see. We will see. But it was a nice day today. I sat out on the porch for a good chunk of it after I was home from all the driving. Now, when I say that, we had a lot of driving to do. There was a lot of things to do. The kittens are old enough to have their neutering. There's 2 kittens, okay, that we rescued, of course, from underneath the dumpster at my wife's shop, because that's where she found them. She found 3 kittens. One of them was adopted by someone else at the shop, and we brought the other 2 home. if you haven't heard about this all yet, I'm sure I've talked about it in a past episode. But within the last few weeks, one of the two kittens started to spray and mark territory inside the house, of course. And we didn't want that to continue for too long. I've been following him around, cleaning up, making sure the house doesn't stink for that entire time frame. And then today was his appointment this morning at 9 a.m. 8:30 to 9 a.m. They always give you a window to have his neutering. His brother has not started with the marking or with any sort of dominance or anything. He's a bit of he's a late bloomer, as they say, which is good for us because that means we don't have to pay for both of them at the same time because it's expensive. It was just shy of $200 to get this cat neutered, which is a definite increase in price from what I remember the last time we had to get a cat neutered, which was a few years ago. So we took him in bright and early this morning. He's doing well, by the way. He's doing fine. He's doing great. The procedure went through fine. But we dropped him off because it takes a few hours. And then I had to go to a FedEx store where I had printed out a copy of a settlement paper that I had to sign. Because I've talked about this before as well. I'm going to mention a lot of things I've talked about on the show before, but this is kind of resolving some of those twists and ties. Back during the virus years, when everything was locked down and everything was a bit crazy and we all went a little mad for a little while, I had gotten into some pretty awful credit card debt. Because we had a lot of money at the time due to my wife's job that she'd managed to get. And the prices had not started to skyrocket yet. The credit card rates hadn't started to skyrocket yet. So I spent a lot of money on a lot of things that I didn't need. Put it on credit because the credit rates were manageable, and I figured, I'll just pay it all here and there. Then the rates went up. Then the prices of everything went up. And then she had to leave that job because it was literally causing her physical illness. So I dug a hole, a debt hole, a credit debt hole that I was not able to get out of. I had to stop paying things. I had to just let things go just to focus on groceries for the house and utility payments and all that kind of stuff. Now, eventually, these credit card companies decided, well, we want our money. So they started to sue me, which is fair. I did owe them the money. I made the issue. But I didn't have the money. I couldn't fight the case because I didn't have any money to begin with, and I couldn't. Whatever they wanted me to pay, I couldn't, so I didn't know what to do. So I got with a debt consolidation company. I signed up with a debt consolidation company that basically, they lump everything down into a certain payment twice a month. And then they use those payments as like a bank to make settlement offers to my various debts in sequence. Like they do it one at a time so they're manageable. And then they use that as something to both pay their fees because they're a law office and they're owed money for doing the service, and to pay off my debt. And I've been with them for about a year or two now. I've got one credit card paid off. I have another one that's going to be paid off next month. And then just recently, I was sued for the second time. The first credit card didn't sue me. The second credit card did sue me. And so I had to reach a settlement with them. And the third one sued me just about a week or two ago. And so And I refer it all to my debt consolidation people. They do handle it. They're all lawyers. They contact the other people, and they reach a settlement, and they tell me this is how much the payments are going to be, and they figure it out with the bank that I have that I'm paying into as part of the program, right? But I have to sign off on all of the settlements. So I had to print out. My printer doesn't have any ink, and I don't have any money for ink. So I had to go to FedEx and have them print out the documents for me so I could sign them, and then I had to take them to the post office to have them sent out. So that the opposing counsel would have my agreement. This is what we settled on, and we're all on the same page. So then they can start taking the payments, and everything will work itself out. And eventually I will be debt-free. I believe the program says I'll be debt-free by 2027, sometime next year, potentially. I guess we'll have to see. I don't know. Either 2027 or 2028, so it could take up to 2 years. But that's what we're working on right now. Excuse me, pardon me. So I had to do all that today after we took him to his neutering. So when we got home, I laid down for a while, took a nap, woke up at what would be my usual time. And I've been groggy and kind of out of it ever since. Because anytime my sleep schedule is adjusted or messed up or interrupted, I have a hard time. I have a hard time getting back into the swing of things. So I'm tired. But the little guy is fine. He had his neutering surgery. He's home. He's playful. He's eating food. He's attacking his brother. He's threatening to split his stitches because he's not supposed to be this active, but he won't listen because he's a kitten. Right. So what are you going to do? Anyway, so that was my day today. I've got other things going on. I finally got around to watching the first night of the 2026 Wrestlemania. I'm going to talk about that a little bit later. But I'm going to watch the other one probably sometime tomorrow. We're going to watch it in pieces. I didn't get to watch it live over the weekend. Things were just going on. So I watched the first night, and again, we'll talk about it later. But let's talk about my car. I don't know if I mentioned in the last episode. I think I did. But my car was making a knocking sound in the engine, which is never good. It's never a good sign. We've replaced both of the front control arms. We've replaced some bearings. We've replaced spark plugs. We've replaced a lot of things in the car. We have an exhaust for it. It's a dual exhaust, and one of the exhaust pieces basically rusted off, and we have a replacement that we're going to be putting in. So we have that. But it started making when we went to the grocery store the other day. Me and my daughter, we were headed to the grocery store this past Friday, and it was sputtering, and it was acting like it wanted to stall, and it didn't want to have a lot of power to go up and down hills, so we didn't get very far. We turned around, we came home. The wife took it up to the shop. Part of the issue was that I had bad gas in the car, because I had been really low, and I hadn't intended to be so low, but I hadn't been paying attention to it because I don't drive it very much. I don't go very many places. So I was taking it to get some gas at my preferred gas station which I know has decent gasoline, and it started to sputter and act like, oh no, we're going to run out of gas, the car's going to die. So I had to stop at a little smaller station along the way that I never stop at, and apparently the gas was bad. So it didn't treat the car very well. So she took it in, she did all that, and then we discovered that the engine was knocking. Now, it's not a rod. If you know anything about engines or about cars, you'll know about rods. I don't know specifically where in the car the rods are in the engine. I just know that anytime if you have a rod that's knocking, it's a bad sign. It's a high probability that the engine is done. You need a new engine. Or you need to rebuild it from scratch. Right? But it wasn't regular. It was an irregular knock. So we did some diagnostics and we've discovered that it's not a rod, probably, but it is most likely the timing chain, which I guess helps with the timing of the firing of the cylinders in the car. Now, again, if you're not a car person, you won't understand any of that. I only know some of it. I know how to do certain things on my car, but I'm not a car guru. I couldn't explain exactly how an engine works, right? I understand the concept if it's shown to me, but I can't really repeat that. I don't have that level of knowledge. So the timing chain is not timing correctly, which requires getting into and taking apart the engine, and it's a laborious process, which requires a special engine lift, like a little miniature crane that lifts out the engine, and some other things, and it's potentially it's going to cost up to $2,000 of parts and labor to get it done. For the moment, I can drive it around locally here in town, but there's always the potential that if the chain snaps or slips further or something else happens, that the engine will just go kaput, and then, that'll be it. Needs a new engine. So I'm dealing with that, which is not pleasant. It's not pleasant because it is a lot of money, and we're already struggling with paying back the debt consolidation stuff, and then further the winter bills hit us really hard, and it's not been great on the financial front. So I don't know when I'll be able to get that repaired in the way that it needs to be repaired. Hopefully soon, hopefully not. I don't know. But it's been frustrating. It has been frustrating because everything has increased in price. And you can say, oh, well, it's because of the tariffs, or it's because of this, or it's because of that, and maybe it is, maybe it's not. Maybe it's just the way the world is working right now. Everything always goes up and nothing goes down. But it's another headache on top of other headaches. So that's fun. That's what's going on with that. But on the plus side, it was a beautiful day. As you too would say. So what else do we have going on? What else do we have? Oh, I'm yawning because it's been such a day. Let's get back to... We might as well do it now. Let's talk about WrestleMania Night 1. I have not watched Night 2 as of this recording, so I can't talk about that, and I don't want to spoil anything. I know some things from it because it's impossible to escape spoilers online, especially on YouTube and whatnot if you go on after the fact. I've tried to avoid most of it, but I know that there's some things. But anyway, night one, it was underwhelming, which I kind of expected. The whole build-up to WrestleMania this year has been just all over the place. A lot of the stories they've been trying to tell have not landed. They've kind of come out of nowhere. They have people out on injury that were supposed to be in big high-profile matches, and because they were out on injury, they couldn't, so they had to pivot at the last minute. And there's a lot of things weird with it. Like, I think I mentioned last time that that they were giving discounts on tickets, which told me that perhaps they were having trouble selling tickets, which is a big deal for WrestleMania, for a big event like that. Now, the camera shots of the crowd were they were fair. I think they were generous. They seemed like they were relatively honest, because sometimes they'll do camera shots if they're in a smaller venue and they won't show you, oh, there's this big block of empty seats over here. We don't want people to see that. We want it to look like a packed house. But this one, they did a pretty fair job of accurately showing how many people were there. And the venue was under capacity. I know that because we looked up what the capacity was supposed to be, and we compared that with the announcement they made, because they're always proud of how many people show up. They use it as like a big measuring stick. They'll usually have halfway through one of these big events, they'll say, oh yeah, we've hit a record 40,000 people in the arena tonight, or a record 17,000 or whatever, and we're sold out at 52,000 and things like that. Right? And they did that with this, but it didn't set a record. They didn't say it was a record crowd. They just said the amount of people that were there. And there were a couple of sections in the nosebleeds that were completely empty. They had large chunks of space where they didn't have anybody. And I think they had trouble selling tickets with the cost. The cost of the event was just astronomical this year, and I think they just had difficulty getting people to show up. Plus the fact, again, that the stories they were trying to tell, some of them weren't great because some of them were just tacked on at the very last second. Now we're going to talk about some names, and if you're not a wrestling person, you won't have any idea who any of these people are. So I guess you can, skip ahead or something like that. But if you are a wrestling person, then you'll recognize some things. I'm not going to go in match order because I'm remembering it and I'm kind of just skipping around. One of the ones that stands out is the Gunther versus Seth Rollins match, because this was a match that wasn't necessary, that didn't have a story behind it until really the very last minute. Some background. Seth Rollins had formed a group called The Vision, right? With some heavy hitters. He had Braun Breaker, he had Bronson Reed. Now it has Bronson Reed, Braun Breaker, Austin Theory, and Logan Paul. But at the time, it was just Braun Breaker, Bronson Reed, and Seth. And Seth had injured himself at whatever the previous premium event had been. I think it was either Elimination Chamber or it was Survivor Series. I don't remember for sure. But he'd hurt himself. So they had to write him off the show so that he could take some time for surgery and for rehabilitation. So he got kicked out of his group. They betrayed him. They turned him out. So he just recently came back. Okay? And you would think, oh, he's going to get revenge on his group. But the two members of the group that were in it when he got thrown out are both out on injury. Braun Breaker had hernia surgery, and Bronson Reed is dealing with something, like a pectoral surgery or something like that. I don't remember. So he had nobody to revenge against, so to speak. So, because the two new guys that are in the group that got brought in after he left were brought in after he left because, it's trying to beef up the group and keep it in business while he's out on injury. So he doesn't have really a feud with them other than the fact that they're part of the group. They're not the guys that turned on him. And they have other feuds going on, so he doesn't have anything to do with them. So when he came back, the two guys are both out on their own injuries. So who is he going to fight with for WrestleMania? Because he was supposed to fight with one of them to get revenge at WrestleMania. Right? He was supposed to fight Braun Breaker, because that would make sense, because that's the guy who betrayed him. And now he can't, because Braun's out. Now, Braun did show up and do some interference, but he didn't do anything major because he's still dealing with the after effects of surgery. He looks good. He looks healthy enough, but they didn't want him doing a whole lot because, again, he's not medically cleared. So who do they pair Seth up with? They pair him up with Gunther, which is weird because the build-up had been storyline that everyone had assumed that Gunther, his gimmick right now is that he fights old wrestlers and retires them. He fights them and challenges them to the end of their career. If they lose, then they have to leave forever, and then that's what he does. And he's done that with 2, maybe 3 wrestlers right now. So the thought was that he was going to fight Brock Lesnar and then retire Brock Lesnar, okay? They changed that, so now Oba Femi, who's a younger guy from their developmental who just came up, who's super popular, big, tough, strong guy, they figured he's a better fit to fight Brock Lesnar for WrestleMania, and that's coming up on night 2, which I have not watched yet. So where does that put Gunther? Well, Gunther was free, and Seth Rollins was free, so they said, why don't you guys have a match? So they set this, at one of the weeks prior, building up to WrestleMania, they had Gunther attack Seth just randomly, for no particular reason. And at WrestleMania, watching the match earlier tonight, they said, oh yeah, Gunther has always had this problem with Seth because the one match they had in the past, it didn't end in a satisfactory way, so he's been looking for a rematch ever since. And it was the flimsiest bit of story that they could tack onto it. And it was the only bit of story that they tacked onto it. There was no other reason for these two guys to be fighting, other than a suddenly discovered old grudge. So they have their match, and Braun interferes while the ref's not looking, just to keep him in the picture, because again, the long-term plan is him versus Seth Rollins. And Gunther steals a win from Seth Rollins while he's distracted. So, kind of lame. Not my favorite match of the night. The women's championship match between Stephanie Vaquer and Liv Morgan was a decent enough match, but it started with a brand new song by Liv Morgan with a dance routine and dancers and a bunch of things, like a live music video, and she was lip syncing it and the sound wasn't piped in right, so she couldn't hear it quite right, so her lip syncing was off. And so her new theme song is a song that she has done herself, because now she's apparently a musician, like a pop star, and it was not great. I'm not going to talk about the artistic value of the song, because I'm sure some people liked it, and I didn't hate it. I just don't think it fit. But Liv Morgan won with the help of her Judgment Day ladies. So she is the new women's champion. then you, and again, this is not in order. So when I say then, I'm not saying then this happened in chronological. No, I'm not going in chronological order. I'm going as I am interested in talking about things. There was a tag team match with the Usos and LA Knight versus Logan Paul and Austin Theory and the streamer I Show Speed. I Show Speed is a nuisance streamer. He's not as bad as some people. He's not as bad as Johnny Somali or some people like that. But his claim to fame basically is barking like a dog on his stream when things are going a certain way, shouting and screaming, smashing keyboards, and rage quitting in spectacular fashion. And he's been known to say derogatory things about women and about minorities. Well, I mean, not minorities necessarily, but about different gender things, right? So he's not the pinnacle of good taste. Much like Logan Paul. But he obviously had learned a few moves, and they put him in there because, you know, it's celebrities in WrestleMania. And he ended up making mistakes, and so Logan Paul and his team turned on him because he screwed up, and then the other team was like, no, now you can help us, and they got the win, and they boosted him up, and like, yeah, now you're good, and everybody loves I Show Speed, and I think he sucks. Anyway, so there was that. The ladies' four-way tag match was mostly forgettable. Nia Jax and Lash Legend came out in outfits that were supposed to be in homage to Demolition, which was an old 90s, 80s, 90s tag team that were in the Hall of Fame this year. So they were wearing outfits inspired by that. The biggest twist was when the Bella Twins came out, because they were part of this 4-team tag team match, and apparently Nikki Bella hurt her ankle or her foot or something, so she's in a boot and a crutch. So she couldn't fight in the match. So who's going to be her sister's partner? Well, it's Paige. Paige has been in AEW for several years, last I knew. And I didn't know she was coming back, but apparently she came back to WWE. And she's been immensely popular. She was in the same class of ladies at the time as AJ Lee. They were partners for a little while and things like that. So she was when a certain type of the lady wrestlers went from being mostly all there for looks to actually being able to do moves and such, and not participating in some of Vince McMahon's kind of scandalous sort of nightgown matches and things of that nature, which were pretty classless, pretty tasteless, to be honest. So she came from a later generation that changed the way that lady wrestlers were presented in a more positive way, which is good. But I didn't know she was coming back, so she was the biggest surprise of the night, and she did well. She did well enough. Her finisher's tougher than most lady finishers. It's a type of DDT, which is fantastic. And she ended up winning the match for her team, which was the Bella Twins. Now that sets up an interesting storyline in the future, because she was a stand-in for one of the twins, just because one of the twins hurt themselves, but since they won the tag team championship now, she has a belt. So is the twin going to be like, okay, well, you know, technically it was my sister that you were tagged with, so it's my title. And then she could say, no, I did it, so it's my title. And then there's going to be some friction. So that could tell a fun story, despite the fact that, you know, the Bella Twins aren't known for their their intellectual storytelling, so to speak. But I think that could go somewhere. So as much as while I wasn't super into the match itself, I am interested in that little bit of a twist going forward. So that was a nice surprise. The match with AJ Lee and Becky Lynch. Becky Lynch cheated and won back the Intercontinental Women's Championship. I'm sure that'll come up with something later. What other matches were there on this show? I don't think that there was anything else other than the main event. The main event might be the final thing. And if I told you that the main event involved Pat McAfee getting smashed through a table by Jelly Roll, would you believe me? It doesn't matter if you believe me or not, because that's what happened. The main event was Randy Orton versus Cody Rhodes for that championship, for that WWE championship. And lately they've tacked on Pat McAfee as suddenly being a bad guy. He'd been a commentator for a while in WWE, very much like a positive guy, like he was very like good, always for the people. And now they've switched him up because they're trying to pump up that deal they have with ESPN for all of their premium content. And so they made him a bad guy complaining about the way the business is going, and he said Randy Orton's going to change the way it's going, and he's going to make it better. And so he was on Randy's side, and so he comes out with him. Before the match even starts, they try to beat up Cody Rhodes. Cody Rhodes has none of it. He fights back. He throws Pat McAfee out. And Jelly Roll shows up, because Jelly Roll was a friend of Randy Orton's. And Jelly Roll has been... He's a recording artist, by the way. It's the country rap singer Jelly Roll. Okay? It's not a regular wrestler who's named Jelly Roll. It's the musician. He's been trying to talk Randy Orton out of being such a mean guy. Like, don't be the bad guy. Don't be the crazy man. Don't do it. And Randy's not having it. So Randy's listening to Pat McAfee. So they put Pat McAfee on a table, and Jelly Roll jumps up on a second table and gives him an elbow drop and smashes him through the table. And that's before the match even starts. That's before the match even starts. Then you have the championship match between Randy Orton, because they wheel out Pat McAfee on a stretcher. All dramatic, right? So then you have the match, Orton versus Cody Rhodes, and it's a decent enough match. It wasn't too long, because all the other shenanigans took up most of the time. It wasn't too long. And it ends with Randy Orton gives a move to the referee to buy some time. Pat McAfee comes back out in a neck brace, but in a referee's shirt, to try to be on his side. So when he tries to pin Cody, Pat McAfee counts, but he doesn't count fast enough, and Cody kicks out. So Randy Orton turns on Pat McAfee, of course, kicks him out of the ring. And that gives Cody the opportunity to get the win. And then after the match, Randy Orton gets up and kicks Cody in the face with his infamous punt. So that's setting up a feud still for the future. But that was the main event. The only other thing that happened was that Bianca Belair showed up. She's been out on injury because she has a finger that won't bend properly, and they haven't figured out why, so they need to go in and have surgery on her finger, of all things. And she's been out for months with this issue. But she showed up, and I thought, oh, maybe she's going to announce when she's going to be back. But she announced that she won't be back for a little while because she's having a baby. She's in the early stages of pregnancy. So she'll be out for a while longer. Understandably. And then other than that, I'm trying to think if there was anything else memorable that happened. And there really wasn't. It was pretty lackluster. It was not a lot happened, to be fair. It's I thought last year's WrestleMania was kind of weak. But this one was just, I don't know. I'm not into it. I'm hoping better things will happen on the following night, which would have been Sunday night, but again, we didn't watch it on Sunday night. We're going to watch some of it probably tomorrow and some of it probably the next day, because it's like a 3-hour show and we don't have quite that much time in the evenings to watch these things, but I'm hoping it's going to be better. I have some spoilers about what happened, and I'm not going to talk about them because I haven't seen them yet. But it just, I don't know. I'm not impressed by this year's WrestleMania. And next year's, I am even less impressed already without knowing any of the matches yet. Because, just like with the Royal Rumble for this year, for 2026, next year's WrestleMania for 2027 is going to be in Saudi Arabia, which I don't care for. I don't like the restrictions that they put on the female wrestlers in Saudi Arabia. I don't like the fact that they can just spend so much money and get this piece of entertainment for themselves over there. It's going to make the prices for everything even worse. Not that I have any plans of going to a WrestleMania, because it's already ridiculous, but I mean, there'd be no chance. I condone minor events, because why not? Because you go to other countries, you go to Europe, and you go to South America, and you go to Mexico, and you do different events, because people worldwide like pro wrestling, so you might as well be like, okay, well, this is an event for just you guys, this is an event for you guys, here's an event for Saudi Arabia, whatever. Crown Jewel was supposed to be for Saudi Arabia specifically, which would be fine, because it's the one out of the year that every time, okay, there they go. But this last time Crown Jewel was in Australia, which was strange. Sponsored by Saudi Arabia, because they own they own the prizes, they own the belts and the rings and all the other things that people earn winning their matches in Crown Jewel, but it was in Australia. So I don't condone things like the Royal Rumble or Survivor Series or SummerSlam or WrestleMania going to Saudi Arabia. I just don't. I don't think they deserve it. I don't think it's necessary. You can argue with me in the comments if you like. It comes down to money. I mean, Saudi Arabia is flush with money. All kinds of money, and they're just spending it on entertainment all over the place. They've got boxing events, they've got comedy events, they've got theme parks, they've got tourism, they've got so many things in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. I get it, but I don't have to like it. I don't have to like it. And I won't. And I won't. So anyway, we're looking forward to watching the rest of WrestleMania, and I hope the matches are better than they were for the first night, because the first night was pretty poor. The cats are over there fighting with each other because the boys, now that the one is home, he's wrestling with his brother, even though he's not supposed to. Stop it, boys. Come on. He's still working out the hormones, so he's still trying to be dominant over his brother. But that's WrestleMania. We'll have another report on the second night, probably on the next episode of this, even though it'll be a full week after the fact. But it's fine. I'll keep you folks updated, just in case you wonder. But what else is happening out in the world? In a few weeks, I will be going to an event. It's probably the only event that I'm going to be going to this year because, again, I don't like to travel, and I don't travel very well anymore. My back has been bothering me today. I must have tweaked it at some point in my sleep or something. I don't know. It's been sore and very sensitive and wanting to throw itself out all day long. So I'm babying it. But, so all of that kind of stuff, plus the fact that I can't drive my own car on long trips for the foreseeable future until we fix that issue. I just don't like being far away from home. I like to be home. I like to be comfortable. I like to have access to my food, my entertainment, my comfort, But I am making one trip this year. I will be going back to West Virginia for the Fallout Jamboree, which is in a few weeks here. Myself and the alchemist Rob from This Uncanny Earth, we will be going down. I'm going to be taking my wife's car rather than mine, because hers is in better shape than mine, obviously. And we're going to go down and we're going to spend a day, probably a day and a half. I don't know, maybe one day, actually, if you combine the whole thing. Because we're going down there, hanging out, spending the night at a motel, and then spending a little bit more time at the event and then coming back. It's to celebrate the Fallout series of video games and celebrate game culture and stream culture and all that other kind of stuff. And several people that are putting on this event and going to be attending this event are people that are good friends of Rob from This Uncanny Earth. And so I'm riding shotgun. I mean, I'm driving, but I'm basically just his wingman on this trip while he hangs out with people that mean a lot to him. And we're going to do our thing down there. We're going to prop the Uncanny brand, put ourselves out there, make sure we're visible. And that is probably the only trip I'm going to take. I had thought that I was going to be taking a trip to Pennsylvania to play a show under my Spider in the Hall project name. I had been offered a chance to be on a show out there, and I was just waiting on details. And then once the details came out, they did not include me. The flyer and the band announcements and everything came out. Oh, this is the lineup for the show this year, and I was not on that, and I wasn't told, which kind of annoyed me. But you know what? I get it. I mean, people are people, and I'm not going to take it personally. These are people who are nominally friends of mine. And while I am really irritated on one level that they didn't just tell me, hey, no, we're not going to put you on the show this year. I know we offered, but we had to change our mind. That would have been fine. I respect that kind of response. It doesn't mean I'm not going to be a little disappointed, but I do respect that degree of, hey, you know what? We can't put you on. We said we were going to, and we talked about it, but in the end, we couldn't do it. Okay, I get it. But not being given any heads up or any sort of whatever kind of irritates me on a slightly deeper level. But it's fine. I'm not going to dwell on it. I'm not going to be mad. I don't like to travel, so I guess it solves that issue. It keeps me from having to worry about a trip that I don't really want to make. So one trip this year, and that's probably about it. In other interesting news, my daughter is 5 feet tall. She's 11 years old, and she's 5 feet tall. I joked and told her that I'm going to have to start getting her a basketball hoop. Sign her up for the NBA. She's growing. My goodness, she's growing. She could potentially get taller than me. I don't know. I'm not a short person, but I'm not an exceptionally tall person. I'm average height. I think I've mentioned that on the show here before. But she is 5 foot at age 11. She'll be 12 in October. We'll see how much she's grown since then. But she's just she's all gangly. She's all elbows and knees right now. She's in an awkward phase because that's what happens when they stretch out like that. She's a preteen, and she's bumping into things, knocking things over, making messes, having accidents. And I told her it's fine. I told her it's not a big deal. It's what happens. When you get to that age, you tend to be kind of gangly and kind of just a lot of things are going on, and you don't always have control over your functions. So accidents are going to happen. Don't worry about it. Just try to be careful the best you can. So that's fun. She's almost as tall as her mother. Which is, again, her mother's not short, and I'm not short, but she's still, she's growing. Smart, tall, robust, gets over illnesses super quick, faster than me. I've not gotten sick again since I got over whatever that other thing was that lasted for like 7 months. Yeesh. I have not gotten sick again, so crossing our fingers that won't happen anytime in the near future. I feel pretty good not being sick for months on end. I feel pretty good about it. Oh, what else is there? Is there anything else? We're about towards the end. We've got only a couple of minutes left. And there's not much going on other than that. We talked about the wrestling. We talked about the car. We talked about the kitten. And that's been mostly my life right now. The kittens, the car, dealing with the debt, and then whatever the wrestling thing is. One last thing, the Washington State Independent Music Awards, which happened on the complete opposite of the country from me, but still, many of my friends were involved with that, happened a couple of nights ago, and went very well. It was probably the best version of the event that they've had so far. I think it was the third annual edition of the event. And everybody had a lot of fun, and I'm always inspired by seeing how they do things. I'm always impressed by how they manage to pull off these events and get so much local attention to it, because it's fascinating, and it's inspiring, and it's just heartwarming that they can get so many local people interested in these things. When around here, in my town, nobody goes to shows unless it's like the absolute biggest name possible. Other than that, the scene is not good here in this part of Ohio. It's not great. So anyway, congratulations to them. Congratulations to Lou Jack Promotions, who put on the event, and for the Ladies of the Musicians Hangout for hosting, and each of them individually for their own bands that they're a part of, their musical projects, they both won awards, which is fantastic. I think they deserve it 100%. They deserve all of that, and I'm grateful to them for everything that they do. Next year, I 100%, and I've said this year, and I said it last year, I wanted to sponsor the event both last year and this year, partially to help support everything with a bit of a monetary donation, but also to make sure that I got my name, the Uncanny Media branding, listed somewhere on the promotional stuff, but I didn't have the money. It just wasn't available, and the idea fell through. But next year, I'm going to start setting aside money now because I want to sponsor the event. I want to be on the posters. I want to be on the flyers. I want to be on the promo material. I want Uncanny Media to be prominent at the Washington State Independent Music Awards. I think that'd be pretty cool. But that's it. That's pretty much what I have. It was a bit of a back and forth kind of show, but that's what's been going on lately. And we'll see what happens next week. I'm going to have the second night of WrestleMania probably on next week. We'll have an update on Kittens shenanigans. And who knows? Maybe something interesting will happen in the news that does not involve a certain presidential person. Because that's what seems to be just dominating every single news cycle all the time. And I don't want to talk about that all the time. I'd rather talk about different things. I don't want to be yet another channel, yet another show that talks about the President of the United States. I would rather talk about something else because there's already enough people doing that right now. This is your break from that kind of thing. This is your opportunity to listen to something else, anything else. But that's it. We're going to go. Thank you for listening. Tune in next week for another great episode of Uncanny Media, the show. It's me, your good buddy Spider. Good buddy Spider. Spider. I'm looking out for you. I'm tired. I'm rambling. But I'm here for you. And we're going to talk about some fun stuff. See you next time.